Hello, everyone. This is Alon Lilly with a kind of impromptu Loncast. I'm recording at like 11:40. I should be asleep right now, but honestly, I just felt like yapping. Um, so I'm gonna yap. That's what I do. Um, yeah, like I don't know. As of recently, there's been some waves in the Yukiko community. It's somewhat inspired me to think about the character more and just general things. And I don't have a huge prompt for this podcast. I don't even know if it will be as long as the other ones, to be honest, because like I said, it's like 11:40 right now. I should be asleep, but one of the things that prompted me to make this is that I made a synergy tier list video a while ago, and naturally things do change over time, and well, a lot of my opinions have changed, and I wasn't really planning on making an entire video about this, so I might talk about some other things later, but like at least for now, I just wanted to express some changes in my personal opinion about Yu-Gi-Oh teams. There has been a lot and I guess a little at the same time. I have the current tier list right now. I should close up the channel thing just so I don't dox myself on accident, but um, I do have the current tier list that I would make right now, S through B. Quite frankly, everything in S, D, and E, I haven't really moved on or really haven't been super convinced of changing any of those tiers. Maybe sometime in the future, if I wanted to make a full revision of the list, I could look at that. But like just off the top of my head, and looking back at the tier list that I made a while ago, let me just go to that real quick. Let's see, where is it? Which is just like based off this, um, in C through E tier. Maybe I'd move Platinum down to C and move Taylor up to B. Actually, uh, there hasn't really been many changes in that regard. Uh, but there have been some modifications to the A tier and by extension the B tier. I still think the top three Yukiko teams are right here between Hilda, Yumi, and Nine. If you want my full explanation, I still mostly agree with everything I said 3 years ago, so I won't yap too much about that. But Hilda Yukiko being a very strong team overall for Hilda. I think like genuinely that team is like low key kind of stupid, but it just has the opportunity cost of using Yukiko instead of another character for Hilda. I think that team has great synergy, great dual sided. Yumi being a more Yukiko focused team, but enables her a lot. Um, and also I think Yumi gets a lot of leverage through 6B, and Nine being probably the more point focused nine team. Like she just teleports around and causes some shenanigans with Yukiko 6B and gets a pretty decent damage output from Yukiko as well. And of course it's Nine. She doesn't really need a partner in order to function. So those teams are those teams untouched. I still believe those are the top three Yukiko teams. Even though there isn't a lot of representation for any of those teams as of currently compared to when I make it back then, I'm a firm believer of that synergy. Um, and I probably won't move on those. Um, that being said, there have been some modifications into these two tiers. For some reference, I put Blake and Rachel and Ruby into the A tier. I had them in A tier, past tense, in my previous tier list. and I will be moving them down to B tier. There have been some changes in my ideology, not too much. I still am of the firm belief that Yukiko teams function better when Yukiko has a focus on being the anchor rather than the focus. So a lot of my current placements um really reflect that in the A tier with Ore, Batista, Izuyoi, Yuzuriha, and Susan. For a quick recap, I mean, I'm the Ore Yukiko guy. I think that that team has some really strong Ore focused synergy. Ore uses 6P fantastically, and while Yukiko doesn't necessarily benefit too much from Ore's assist, I think there's enough there, especially with 4P giving some leverage and 5P and 6P giving her some now ground space control. Batista is probably the most balanced A tier team, where I think both characters have a symbiotic relationship where Batista creates space, allowing 6P calls to be used full, and Batista has a lot of strong assists in order to enable Yukiko's zoning tools. Overall, I think the team has a lot of space control viability. I just think that the team isn't necessarily strong enough to put into S tier because I don't necessarily think Batista is the strongest character to have her Zona game enabled. Still really powerful, really annoying, really strong team that has a lot of flexibility how you can play it, but that's why it's only an A tier. Izuyoi Flight Dash character plus 6P is really stupid, and that has not changed at all. Izuyoi has strong assists. Izuyoi strong assist to help. You could go like zone and space out, whereas the main focal point of the team, the 6P plus flash dash, is as stupid as it'll ever be. Having such a good airspace control is naturally good for a character that likes being in the air. I will make an exception, and that's why we'll be moving Rachel down into the B tier. But just know for now that Rachel Yukiko, I think, is still very close to the A tier, but not quite. Yuzuriha, I think, is a very similar idea, as weird as that might sound, because Yuzuriha really likes airspace, and she really likes moving around a lot, and 6P can really facilitate that. The way I've kind of always justified this team's tier placement, despite it not having a lot of footage out there, is that it works as a very weird kind of Hilda Yukiko, or not, sorry, not Hilda Yukiko. Hilda Yuzuriha team where you just use a big ass assist in order to leverage Yuzuriha's like left right stuff, and I still genuinely think that team is really strong. It's just really weird to play and has maybe some growing pains, and it needs a lot of like I think it needs an expert I remember I make it shine, and someone might get there eventually. But for now, it's one of those theoretically really good teams. Suzuno is another character that I think really benefits off 6P. Um, and yeah, I mean he just kind of does Susan things. With those assists, he's really good at protecting her, and you get Susan's quite frankly insane assist kit with 6P and 4P. I didn't expect to be yapping about the team synergies there, but I think it'll be helpful for why I contextualize moving down Blake, Rachel, and Ruby. Um, First of all, let's start with probably the greatest emotion here, which is Blake. I used to think this team was really strong because it theoretically worked really well on paper. Um, you would just kind of mess around with Blake 6P or yeah, I mean yeah, you would mess around with Blake 6P. Blake has an absolutely insane assist kit. That's not in doubt with 5P really good sandwich, 6P is really good space control. 4P is a pretty solid anti-air. I think so. You cover your base as well. I just think that this team's just a little too awkward. Blake is an awkward character. I personally think she's really strong, but she's very niche in terms of. I mean, she likes UV. I don't know if I'd call that niche, but she's very particular about her partners, and Yukiko just really doesn't enable her at all. I would say outside of just having a bunch of space control with 6P in her airspace, and that is good. And like I said, flight characters and 6P just have that really good mesh together. But I just think like Blake plays at such weird angles where like if the team composition you're fighting is good enough, and there's you know, unsurprisingly, Yukiko is a very exploitable character in terms of her team compositions. Like, if there's just characters that can play within the mid range and not care about the long range too much, you're kind of gonna be in a little bit of pain. You kind of get beaten out by lasers too. Um, at least 6P does, and you're just kind of playing solo Blake, which is good. But like, I generally don't feel like the synergy is as strong as I initially rated it. I still going to opt it to put it into B tier because I think that Blake is a good enough solo character, where she's not suffering too much, and like quite frankly, that assist kit is just absolutely insane. Being able to set up sandwiches from pretty much wherever you want is going to be a great tool for any character. And Yukiko, with her zoning tools, can make good use out of it. It's just that I think when this team plays on point, it's a little awkward, more awkward compared to any of the other characters I would put into A tier. So that just like the little quirk of needing to play at a very specific rank with Blake, puts the team down. Even though I think on paper the synergy there is strong. Um, Rachel is also probably on the teetering edge of of A to B, to be honest. Once again, a lot of this team is predicated on just flight shenanigans and 6P being really good, but at the same time, like Rachel is the type of character that is also really particular about what she wants in a partner. And I don't think necessarily Yukiko provides it. And in some cases, I think even though 6P is a really good space control tool, it's a bit overkill for what Rachel has. And so, for some context, or for people not familiar with the BB tag history at the time, when I made the original tier list, Rachel was actually a surprisingly rare character. Diddley and Serene Smile were the only two Rachel players I was really aware of. I wasn't really aware of like people like Cake. Um, and as a result, my general knowledge of Rachel was relatively limited. Now that Serene Smile plays a lot more, and I've seen him play more, and granted, Serene Smile plays like a weirdo with Rachel, but like still, I'm more exposed to the character and more exposed to what they can do. I've come to realize that Rachel is a meter liking character because she really likes putting down Georges. She really likes throwing out EX Lobelias, and that kind of clashes with Yukiko too, who's also a very meter hungry character. Also, like Rachel really uses her supers very well. It's a really nice reversal. So there's that kind of just like little bit of an impediment there. You're fighting for meter there. A lot of the characters that you see in S and A are not meter hungry characters. Um, um, I'm assuming you're watching this video with some knowledge about Yukiko, by the way. And this if maybe a little too late to say this, but like if you're not super familiar with the Yukiko synergy, I recommend you go watch the original video that I made because I think it explains it a lot better than I'm doing right now. This is very sporadic and on the spot, so it's not super hard and fast. But overall, Rachel just uses autometer. I think that her air space control is good enough as is, and if not overkilled by 6P, to the point where 6P is just really slow. It's going to be very awkward to have to call out sometimes when you're throwing up projectiles, when you're kind of in the close range game where Rachel can be a little iffy, assuming she's not on the advantage, of course. It's nice, and using 6P as kind of a pressure enabler isn't necessarily as strong as I would have liked it to be messing around with the team, because at the end of the day, like, you don't really need it for one, and I think you would be better off using a more traditional lockdown assist than something that you can crouch per se. Um and don't get me wrong, I think when this team gets going, it is potentially really strong, but I think that's done more off the merit of Rachel herself than necessarily the synergy of the team. I will still be placing it into the B tier because Rachel's insane. She has good assists over Yukiko. That 4P is especially egregious. Throwing at projectiles will always be strong. And it just has enough going for it where I think it's teetering on A tier. I can see it. Um, I could see myself moving her back in the future just because like the space control is insane. I think the damage too that you get from Yukiko can really help mitigate one of Rachel's lower points. But overall, just I think the meter hungriness, the lack of necessity for Yukiko really brings it down, and just overall, I don't think the team is quite worthy of A tier. I don't really feel like the synergy is that strong. It's there, but compared to what other characters have in A tier, I'm not I'm not feeling it as much as I used to. Yeah, we'll maybe go back to that at some point in the future. But yeah. Another demotion, Ruby. I kind of thought about it, and like the way I used to see this team is like it's theoretically just better Orye Yukiko, but like I once again just think it's a team predicated on the fact that it's Ruby. The synergy isn't super necessary for her. The 6P is good for her because she really likes that airspace. Um, and overall, the team functions cohesively. It's just like. I'm once again I'm more so teetering on A and B here, and I'm convincing myself she still belongs in A, but I'm just demoting her because like it feels more so that Ruby works with Yukiko, which is it's trait to be what's the word of note for Yukiko teams because as you can see, there's not a lot of characters work with Yukiko in the first place. It's just like 6P shenanigans will always be funny with Ruby, but I just don't think she really that's not really what she wants or needs. I think she would rather have a bullet assist. I think she would rather have more traditional lockdown, and Yukiko doesn't really provide that to her, and she doesn't really want a lot of that. And I could say the same thing kind of with the other characters in A tier, but I think that they have more unique ways of going about using 6P and just Yukiko synergy in general. And Ruby doesn't really have that. Um, yeah, it's just like big buttons, good for Yukiko. That'll always be good. Good at protecting her through her one projectile, which is pretty fast. With her big buttons, she can just move around a lot and make use of it. Um, for now, I'm going to keep her in A because I think the big buttons plus pressure shenanigans with 6P is synergistic enough, even though it's not perfect for Ruby, that I think that I can justify keeping her in the A tier. Give me just 1 second. My headset died, even though I'm just yapping into my microphone. I would rather be able to hear something in case I need it. Scuffed as always. Okay. Um. Yeah, I think that's fine. One of the minor bumps up I'm going to give is to Adachi. As if you've been keeping up recently, as you know, this team has been making waves. It has been winning a lot of major stuff, and I wanted to address this if I ever made a follow up video. So why don't I put this team in A tier? Um, is the biggest question you might be asking. Even though it has proven itself at tournaments and has been making a lot of strides recently, The reason why I don't put this team in A tier and why I don't think this team is overall very strong is because I think it is very polarizing. It is the definition of a feast or famine team. And one thing you have to understand about my philosophy when rating anything, especially in BB tag, is I value consistency more than anything. Consistency is key. Um, I won't go into the fullest details of it, but like when it comes to the Yukiko balance discussion, I tend to rate her pretty low. Not because I don't think she has potential to be very strong in any given match. I just think that she's just so polarizing and can ride or die depending on matchups, depending on player experience, depending on all that. That like she just ends up being a really polarizing character to fight and play. And for me personally, if if you can be god awful or great in a given game, I tend to rate you more on the lower side because I ultimately think that a character should be rated on consistency rather than their potential. And Yukiko, by definition of how fire stacks work and how she builds them, is an inconsistent character. So when you pair her with a character like Adachi and how this team generally plays, which is a boost focused team, you end up bringing out the flaws and the strengths more in such a way where I don't think you are benefiting as much as you would like in a holistic sense of the game. And this is a very complicated way of rating it um, because Adachi not only does not benefit from Yukiko at all, because you don't get to shore up any of his weaknesses, despite how powerful, absolutely game defining Adachi is. He, by himself, is a very flawed character. He really needs fast assist in order to get him out of situations. Um, he really needs like great um point characters in order to make use of like stuff like Bizio and or pressure stuff. That's why like teams like Narukami and Yumi are so prevalent because they do shore up his flaws in that way because the point characters are strong, the pressure games are strong there. And when you put her with Yukiko or put him with Yukiko, it's kind of there. Don't get me wrong, it's kind of there, but it's not to the point where it's worth using Yukiko's flawed assist kit with. There's going to be a lot of games where you just explode and you can't do anything about it because your characters don't shore up each other's weaknesses as much as you'd like them to, especially with Adachi. Adachi has a fantastically strong assist kit, don't get me wrong, but when you play him on point with Yukiko, it's kind of painful, right? You get rushed down really easily. You get outzoned really easily because you don't have quick assists in order to catch people out. You're just gonna lose to anyone hyper aggressive if you don't get your game plan off. And as a result of that kind of dichotomy and that result of that play, I really struggle to put this team in A tier. I'm bumping them up to a borderline team though because of just how strongly you can enable it. But just the fact of the matter of you don't have a backup plan in case you get blown up at the start, even though you can blow people up. It's you see, it's that balance thing, right? It's 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 the perfect exemplification of feast and famine. Um, and if you're good enough, you can feast often, but um, there's just been so many games where I just like, yeah, boosting the level 9 did nothing because you just exploded afterwards. And if you were using a more point centric team, you wouldn't have been faced with that situation where you can't do anything. You just lost too much health in order to regain tempo, and you can't cheese anything without making significant strides in the 2v1 game or just gapping that hard. So that is why I personally place Adachi in this tier, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of disagreements with that one because of how strongly this team has been performing. But I remain steadfast in my belief that this team is B tier. But I will move them up to borderline because, quite frankly, like it is ridiculous what you can end up doing, and I think that's worth noting. Just like I said, my whole spiel about consistency. The consistency is not there. The consistency is is super just one or the other. You can't really have a game where you can pick yourself back up if you've gone into a really bad situations like you can with a lot of the characters in ANS. Um, so yeah, that is my spiel um, about my recent developments in teams. If you have any questions about that, then please feel free to let me know. I'm always down to talk about these things and my philosophies. And like I said, the full video that I made a couple years back, I still mostly agree with. There could probably be some readjustments here or there, but like, yeah, nothing too major like moving down characters a tier. So yeah, um, if you're just there for the synergy part of the video, then you can click off. But I'm I'm gonna talk a little. Surprisingly, this is my first Yukiko oriented Loncast. I know there's only been like three of them technically, um, and I've always wanted to make a video about Yu-Gi-Oh because I consider myself more of an Oreo player. I'm I'm generally more proficient with the character. Not to say that I'm not proficient with Yukiko, or at least while I was more active. I still consider myself more knowledgeable about Orie, and it's just the character I prefer repping. Um, I always viewed myself more as being more in tune with Orie because, quite frankly, like Yukiko's a little weird character for me. I don't like Zoders. Um, I don't really enjoy them in other games, but I do like hybrid characters. Say like Rachel. So I've always focused on kind of playing Yukiko in a quote unquote weird way, which is a hybrid zone or rushdown. So kind of analyzing my game style, I've always adapted myself to be a bit more of a Ori centric Yukiko player is the best way I can put it. And for that reason, just like um I think I developed more Ori skills than I do skills. Like I said, I don't think I'm bad, but like yeah, that's a big part of the reason. But just as a result of that, I've always been more comfortable talking about Ori. But just like there's not a ton you can talk about Ori with. I did the synergy list with Mass. I did the move tier list. I did the matchup chart. And like quite frankly, I don't really know what other topics we can talk about for Ori that aren't like that are related to the game. Um, we could talk about Ori players, I guess. Talk about the difference between them, but I'm not sure how I would go about that, and I'll get a guess for that probably because I desperately need help with that. But I've had a lot of videos that I wanted to make of Yukiko for a while, and despite me saying this about whole me being a Ori player, I did make a lot of Yukiko videos back in the day. I'm very proud of those combo videos I did. I'm pretty happy about how the synergy list came out, and it is currently my most viewed video, sitting at like 960 views, almost 1K. So clearly I did something right there. But I think that Yukiko is a very interesting character. She's very nuanced. Um, and there is a lot of ways in order to play her. which I've always appreciated. And one of the things that I've always wanted to do is like I kind of want to always do a Yukiko diagnostic breakdown about the different ways in order to play her, different ways people have established how to play her, the differences between playstyles and all that, and just a general, just like analyzing the flow of a Yukiko game. Those are two separate related ideas, by the way. I would really like to do a diagnostic analysis of Yukiko and Yukiko players, and also just do kind of just general video analysis, or like I guess a VOD review of kind of how Yukiko plays, and really point out some of the nuanced decision making you can make there. It's just like it's hard to get footage nowadays, and it's hard to get that type of motivation in order to do it because, like, quite frankly, and kind of getting on why Loncast took a really big hiatus is like I'm a person that's very very perfectionist, and I really wanted to make sure I edited the videos and make sure everything was clear and everything that wanted to say was said in some way, shape, or form. And quite frankly, editing videos is miserable. It is, as I would say, really Coco Catster, and I just didn't really want to put the effort anymore. I got demotivated to making videos because I was really torn between um one philosophy or the other of just like just frick it we ball, which is what I'm doing now. By the way, I'm just frick it we ball. If I have a thing I want to yap about, I just yap about it, or something that's more highly edited and something that's more clean and cohesive. I tried to take a middle ground in the past before with the previous two long casts. It was like it didn't work. It didn't work. I didn't like it. I didn't like the flow, and despite the fact that I really like talking about the game, it was really hard for me to want to. So, what am I going to be doing in the future? Um, I have a couple video ideas with zero promises in order to make them. I want to make a Yukiko survival guide, um, which is basically a breakdown on how you should be handling matchups, both fighting as and against her. Because Yukiko is such a weird character, right? In order to fight, in order to play, and a lot of people's struggles nowadays are a result of just kind of the philosophy that you should be having fighting against her. It's not rocket science per se, but I would really like to get some way in order to help my fellow Yukiko players and help people going against her, especially um, in order for those things to really have someone contextualize what to do. So, basic idea. Um, we're gonna go over every character in the roster, and I'm going to um, tell you how to fight against and as them in one section, and we'll go from there. The problem with that and why that hasn't been done yet is I need a lot of footage. Um, and quite frankly, there are not enough Yukiko players, or there's not enough of other people playing some of the niche characters in order for that to really apply. And it would take a lot of clip dumping, and right now I'm really busy with school, um, and all that. So yeah, and I'd have to edit it, and I'll be honest, like I want to get this all by myself because um for one I'm biased. This is the Longcast, this is my show, right? But for the most part I want there to be some consistency with how I talk about certain things. And as a result, like I think I just want to make sure that the footage is all up to my code. Um, so that's the one. That's the main impediment. Um, I I don't know. I have this problem where like I kind of want to do things myself and just get my thoughts out there and have people help me post hoc, which is a very flawed thing of doing it, but that's it. Yeah. This is kind of the way I am. Um, so yeah, that's a video idea. I want to get that eventually. Will that ever happen? Probably not anytime soon, but that's out there. Um, I have a full semi-planned Loncast featuring one of my one of my close buddies, and we're gonna talk about a specific character. Um, I won't delve into the details of it too deeply, but what I've discussed with them is a kind of a case study, kind of case analysis of a specific character in BB Tag. It's gonna be like where they are, what teams kind of fit them, like what is their place in BB Tag, basically, and some of the things that we would like to see with that character. Like I said, I'm sure the person knows who they are when they watch this. So that is something that will get done eventually. I think that in and of itself is way more obtainable because that'll just be a yap session between the two of us. Um, and yeah, that'll come probably this year, assuming we can get something going. I don't know when, I don't know where. I know where it'll be on the Lawn Lily channel, but that's what it'll be. Um, yeah. Another video idea that I've had for a while now is that if you're not super familiar, if you're a bit newer, I was a pretty frequent BB Tag commentator, back a couple of years ago, and I've always wanted to kind of talk about that experience, like why I wanted to do it, how it was, kind of reminiscing on the times, good and bad, and just kind of taking that snapshot of 2021, 2022, 2023 is when I was most active, I think, and just kind of talk about my time as a BB Tech commentator, how the community was different, how commentating felt different, some of the most memorable moments and about that, and just kind of reminisce. I might get somebody to do that with me if I can. Um, I have somebody in mind, but we'll see. I have options. So those three things are video ideas that I've always wanted to get out. And just like let me just reemphasize, I'm not making any promises. Um, this kind of part of the video is more just expressing kind of where I've been in terms of certain things and where I want to be. Um, and yeah, if you honestly, it's like anyone watching this has any suggestions or stuff to do in the future, I appreciate it. Just keep in mind like my general criteria. Like I don't want it to be super editing heavy because like I don't really have time for that anymore. Um, and yeah, um, I appreciate it. This is a relatively short blondcast, only like around 40 minutes. Um, more stuff maybe in the future. Like I said, no concrete promises. But yeah, I appreciate anyone who's watching this. And if you have any questions, comments about the first half of the video, which is the synergy part, feel free to ask. Um, but yeah, this is Lon Lily signing off.